I said, let me go live, but the sun is hitting me. Let me see if I get another parking spot. I pray everybody is doing well. This is Amuna. If you don't already know, I want to thank everybody for stopping by. Feel free to like, subscribe, and do all that good stuff. I don't have long today. I always say that, right? And then I talk long. But we're going to jump right into it. I'm only just trying to get to a different parking spot. We're going to jump right into thoughts on this. Why is this important? Everybody's giving thoughts. I've been following this story since the story broke. Again, I like to look for trends. I like to look for information. That's just how I like to do. Anyway, this story broke a while ago. And for those who may be new to it, Majah Hype is a comedian, right? I'm going to leave all of those specifics out because I have concerns about the way in which he does what he does. But the thing in question was their relationship, which we weren't there, so we don't know the fullness of their relationship. But even more specifically, domestic violence. Now, every October is domestic violence awareness, and there's always domestic violence conversations going on. But what I noticed in which it's dealt with in the community, it's part of the reason why it continues and is so prevalent. And when I heard some of the feedback from the Caribbean community on this sister talking, I'm like, see, and this is why. Let's see if it's better. Yeah, it's better. And this is why stuff like this continues. So the part that I wanted to talk about, I watched the interview. I actually watched it twice. I know when I go back, I'm actually taking notes, either mental or physical notes of what is being said. She's alleging abuse, physical abuse, emotional abuse, but I want to, and that's a very serious allegation. And there are court cases, so that is also very serious allegations in court. You're actually going to court. Some of the rationale, big up to the Caribbean people, but some of the rationale of our Caribbean people, our Caribbean family, my Caribbean family, it just makes me like, what in the world? Okay, let's peel back the layers just a little bit, because I have to run really seriously today. But let's peel back the layers. One of the objections is she's a police officer. So how could she have possibly been abused if she's a police officer? If a police officer doesn't have his badge or her badge, they don't have their bulletproof vests, they don't have the backing of the police brotherhood, what are they? Aren't they just civilians? So if this person, if we just, and I'm just looking at some of the points that I keep hearing coming up, and I'm just looking like, give me a break. If the person, according to the narrative, because you know we like breaking down narratives over here. According to the narrative, the person was a police officer in Houston, Texas. They left their job in Houston, Texas, meaning their police officership. And they moved to a new place to not become a police officer again because they didn't pursue that. They were actually working within the domicile, aka there was house, I don't want to say house help, but she was helping within the house. So she's, according to the narrative, she's the fiance who's now going to be taking care of the children and the home. How this keeps saying that the person is a police officer as if they are actively being a police, how is that? That now makes 699. And y'all gonna hear me chip into patois here and there because that's when I'm really perplexed. The next thing that keeps coming up, besides police officer, is the person is gold digger. Again, I don't know the full specifics, so I'm not going to bat for anybody. I'm just saying the way in which we look for justice when we refuse to be just makes no sense. The way in which we, the people, if somebody else committed a crime, like in the case of everybody's looking for the Floyd case, you want justice. You want, no matter how long ago that was. So if 5 months pass, if 6 months pass, if 1 year pass, you're looking for the person who perpetrated the crime to be held accountable. But in situations of domestic violence or interpartner relationship, or whatever it is, or so violence, we are like, oh, let God handle it. So when someone offends against you and you feel they have the power, you want them to be brought to justice. But when the offense is amongst ourselves, then we say, let God handle it. Okay, so rewind just a little bit, just for my thoughts on what I heard, as well as all of the other things that I heard along the way. I speak often about power dynamic, right? And when power dynamics change, how it affects people and how we get into situations that lead to abuse. Now, if the young lady kept saying over and over that I had a job and I had a space and I was taking care of myself, and she agreed with, under whatever conditions we don't know, to leave her job, that means provision. That means she's going to go now and depend on somebody else to provide. Leave her home. That means she's going to now leave her home and go into somebody else's home. Then the question must be, who now has the power? Where has the power transferred from? It transferred from the person who was taking care and providing for themselves into the hand of now the person who is going to be having to do the providing. So according to her narrative, she gets there and this is reiterated that I have the power. It's my home. There's, you do what it is that I need you to do, or whatever it is that I said. Oh, right away, that puts the person in a compromising situation. And if they cannot necessarily go back to where they just came from or go forward to somewhere else, then financially, not even emotionally and mentally, but financially, they're compromised. We're talking about domestic violence. I really want to talk about the domestic violence aspect, or the alleged domestic violence aspect, because this is how it happens. Right? So somebody is financially hamstrung and they are totally dependent. That means if the person doesn't like your behavior, if the person doesn't, that you can be easily manipulated, cajoled into whatever it is that they want you to do, because you know that if I don't comply, I am not going to XYZ, you fill in the blank. It's funny how, well, anywho, I hear a lot of talk about, the person is gold digger and she's looking to break up his career. We can clearly see, when we're looking for justice, the place in which the people are compromised, or the place in which the people has been injured, that's going to determine whether or not we see the justice or hear the justice, or the injustices from the people who are listening. So for instance, if we say that European people historically in this country have gotten away with violence against melanated bodies, this is why all eyes are on the case. Historically, people being held accountable for the crimes against female bodies is are not always they're not always held accountable. They're always, so they're dismissed or they're let go or whatever the case is. So in this case, the alleged violence is minimalized, it's justified, but her trying to, in the minds of many Caribbean people, to take his career, now that's the offense. Like, why are you still talking about this? Why were people still talking about the offenses that happened since Jim Crow era, since slavery era, why are people still talking about it? So how are you going to ask somebody who's coming to you and saying, hey, in this way, why are you still talking about it? Because it could be that they didn't receive justice. That could be the reason why they're still talking about it, because there was no justice. And if you were the one who was offended, you will still talk about the thing until justice is served. So there's a part in the Torah that talks about just weights and balances. Solomon says it is the Most High's delight. And I've spoken about that before. Part of the reason that the world is in the condition that we are in is because people are not doing what is right and what is just. And they're perverting justice depending on what side of the aisle they're on. That thought process, that actual action is wickedness. I'm just call it what it is. So to hear people up in arms and upset about someone's career, assassinating someone's character, or trying to kill someone's, when the allegation was the person was trying to take the actual person's life. The expectation, I'm using this situation because people who know Their eyes are towards it and we can learn something. But the expectation to continue to cover the person who has violated you, or to continue to cover your oppressor, is a real sickness. It's beyond, it's not just Stockholm syndrome, where a lot of people like to say, you think in your captive. These are the trauma bonds that we're talking about. These are the unhealthy soul attachments. These are the perversions of justice that teaches us that you be quiet when the person is oppressing you, and that you vilify the person who dares to speak up to say you are hurting me. This is, even as I a little bit triggered from looking at the responses, this was something that extends from that slavery period, where the person who gets in trouble is the person who's saying that you are doing something that's wrong, not the person who's doing something that's wrong. And a lot of that is still in the culture. A lot of that is still in the Caribbean. Like, I listened to two Caribbean women, one from Trinidad and one next woman. I mean, ream this woman for having the infantry, the nerve. Like, I have to get Nigerian, the guts, the nerve to speak when the people now have decided that your time to speak is over. It doesn't work like that. Not if we want a better world for our children to come. It doesn't work like that. If your grandchildren see that, listen, you can offend in this way, you can do these things, and because you have money, that means you can get away with it. But at the same time, when someone else does it to you, it's unjust. But when it's one of our own, and because you have money and because you have status, then it's unjust if somebody keeps speaking about it. And why? Because there's an injury in the space of finance for melanated people here in the West. And so the thought is that once you have pushed yourself out of the dirt and you have finally made it, the worst thing you can do is try to come for a person in that space. We saw the same situation, a similar situation with the R. Kelly conversation. Like, why are these people speaking? Why are these people talking? But the reality is, why weren't the people who were around you and saw everything that was happening, why weren't they talking? I know they call it victim shaming. It's a twisting of justice. Forget victim shaming. It's a perversion of justice that only leads to more corruption and wickedness. Now, like I said, we wasn't there. So do we know the fullness and the details of their relationship? No, we were not there. But what can I pull just from this interview and some of the reactions from this interview is that we value males more. I said this one time and people were in their feelings. This society is built to value the contribution of the male more than it is the contribution of the female. And because it is so, his livelihood is worth more than her livelihood. So she gave up her livelihood to help him sustain his livelihood. Let's make no mistakes about it, as according to the narrative, if she left her space to come to his space and he has custody of his children, who was watching his children? One of the things that she said was he made her to feel like he was abandoning his children. She was abandoning his children. So in her concern was his children and her relationship to the children and making sure that they were okay. So he didn't just need her to just come and dust the furniture. He needed her feminine energy to be in his house to sustain that house. Again, this is a job that's not paid. Oftentimes, when you're in a domestic space, I've said this before, and now this is an example as I was thinking about it. And when you're in a domestic space, it's undervalued. You're not compensated, and it doesn't transfer into the marketplace. Skills transfer into the marketplace in the minds of people. His entertainment transfer to the marketplace. His ticket sales transfer into the marketplace. But her time, her energy, her effort, her presence does not transfer into the marketplace. And therefore, the marketplace, which is the consumer, which is we the people, say that we value him more than her. So yeah, maybe he busted her eye, and maybe according to the narrative, allegedly he tried to choke her out, and there's a possibility that he drug her. But it happens. I actually heard somebody say that it happens. I'm squinting because the sun is in my eye. It happens. But it's even more wicked. This is for the Caribbean people. This is for Caribbean people. Dread man, not like Sometimes I have to shake my head and say, oh man, whoa. I mean, the work that needs to be done in the Caribbean people, like, trust me, I come from the level of darkness that can be surrounding the minds of our people, and it's like, Jed, we on the world stage. When you make a YouTube video, I don't know how much of us know that when we click this button and make a YouTube video, you're broadcasting to the world. To the world. Like they say, reggae to the world, to the world. You're angry, you're upset, you're sad, you are bad mind, whatever it is that you're doing, that energy that's coming from you, from your mouth, from your words, from your action, is broadcasting to the world. And what we're telling the world is, we don't care. We value this over this. We value man more over woman. So if you get a little abuse, well, what did you do? What did you say? How did you make him upset? How did you make him angry? So that's my thoughts on that. I thought that it reiterated some things and it elaborated on some things. I thought for the most part the interview was tasteful for the most part. Um I could reserve some comments, but for the most part, it got to what she wanted to share with the people. Some people were confused about why she was still talking, but like I said, usually people still talk when they don't feel justice is served. Do you know that Martin Luther King's family had to sue the government many decades later to get justice for his case that many people don't know? That the government was instrumental in his murder. Do you know that? So you know his niece walks around and still talks. I forgot her name. Martin Luther King's niece, who's present, who's still alive with us today. There are people who continue to. It's like the documentary "Who Killed Malcolm X." I don't know if you saw that. I think it's on Netflix. Way after everybody is over it, there's a man who took up the case who wanted to know who killed Malcolm X. And when people said, you should stop talking about that, or that was very long ago, because justice was not served, because the question was not answered, he took it upon himself to go around and ask uncomfortable questions to people who may have heard or may have known who killed Malcolm X. And he got to the neighborhood where it was an urban tale that they know exactly who killed Malcolm X. And by the time in the documentary, I don't know if you saw it, by the time he actually gets to the man to ask him about whether or not this is true, the man dies. And this is 40 years after Malcolm X is dead. And you have somebody still going around trying to figure out who killed Malcolm X, who killed JFK, who killed Marilyn Monroe, who killed Martin Luther King. So we're talking about somebody who had present day an experience, and we are saying, oh, you're still talking about that? This is the voice of people who have been oppressed and now have become oppressors. And the only way that we can begin to move forward, the only way that we can begin the buzzword that now I've said it so much and so many people have said it so much, I think we need to even get beyond it. The only way we can even begin to repair or restore anything is by justice. When we talk about Torah, as the sun is setting and I got to run inside, when in the beginning in the Genesis narrative, what does it say? It says that his brother's blood, Cain and Abel, was crying out from the ground. And the question is asked, like, what did you do? There had to be some leveling, some balancing of the scales. You can't just say, oh, you talked about it one time. Oh, it's 2 months later. Why are you still talking about it? You're not the person who the trespass was done against. So maybe you're over it. Right, but yet still people are still, when it's cool and when it's hashtagable, we say justice for Breonna Taylor. When it's hashtagable, you hashtag a black George Floyd, and you hashtag Mike Brown, and you hashtag all these people, right? Years after the offense has happened, years after the crime has transpired. But when it's going to be doing intimate violent partner violence, and when it has to do with the very genesis of abuse, the most intimate space that take place, because it was done. Let me ask you something. Because it was done in a closed space, that means it shouldn't get open justice. Oh, we only care more when the injury or the violence is done outside, but when it's done inside, you know, you talked about it once. We heard you. I was with you. But if you talk about it again, and I understand that sometimes we the people, after so much pressure and so much oppression, we don't have the capacity. It's like the soil is fully saturated, so you know, after it rains, it can't, if there's no runoff, it just becomes stagnant, so you don't have any space to process anymore. But then just hold it to a certain degree. Because what we do, I heard one of the ladies say, she transferred, like she 2 seconds talked about the situation and wholesale transferred her own domestic violence situation on top of this young woman's situation, and say, this is why this young woman shouldn't have reacted the way she reacted. Like, I want to say this and then I'm going to wrap up. This is my equivalent of a rant. I don't go like all the way crazy, but this is my equivalent of it. So just rock with me for a second. One of our issues is, like I said yesterday, we associative beings, right? So oftentimes somebody have an issue or somebody have an experience, we'll be like, oh, I had that experience too. But the issue I find is that, just like what this woman did, you want to superimpose your experience on top of mine. Therefore, because you reacted that way, I should react that way. Because you feel this way, I should feel this way. It doesn't work like that. That's not respecting the person as an individual, as a person, as a soul that has their own journey, their own experiences, their own reactions, their own emotions. And we error in that way. Oh, because the person abused you in this way, then, and I thought this, then you should think that. It don't work like that. And we sound all the way crazy. Let me go inside here. We sound crazy out here in these streets. Manalai. We sound crazy. So, closing thoughts. This is something to, if anything, learn from. One thing she said at the end was that this can happen to anybody. And the truth of the matter is, that's facts. Everybody is always more smart and more this and more that because it's not them going through it. When you are in a relationship, or when emotions are involved and hormones are involved and you're not thinking clearly, you're not thinking correctly, you miss red flags. Right? You miss all these things and you enter into spaces that are dangerous, that can compromise you, that can harm you, right? And when you come to, when all of those feelings and emotions die down and you realize, backside, all that you think you would do and all that you feel, everybody who a bad girl and everybody a bad man, would do this and would do that, and seriously. Yeah, seriously. So if we take anything away from this, it's education. Know the signs to look out for. Sometimes we give people the benefit of the doubt who don't deserve it because of the way in which everybody around us gave us that vote of confidence. For instance, when you go look for a job, they say, do you have references? This person give a reference, this person give a reference, that person give a reference, right? So when you're in the social media space and you have somebody who's been elevated because all of these references, all of these confirmations, all of these people saying that this craft really of this person is what I am investing into. This craft of this person is what I'm saying. And the onlookers will take that as, oh, you voting, you know what I mean? You voting for this person. You know what I'm saying? You not voting. What's the word I'm looking for? The word just escaped me. The word just escaped me. But basically, you are pledging that this person is X, Y, and Z. And a lot of people use that. Just like that's why people get caught up with these celebrities, because people use that to say this person is old. Now, I have my thoughts about all the other stuff, but I kind of wanted to just in on this domestic violence situation and say that we need to really give it needs to have more weight, because without giving it the weight that it deserves, then we minimalize it and then we allow it to continue. No, just giving somebody a thumping at them eye is not a little thump, or somebody punching somebody in their stomach, or somebody punching somebody. That's not little. That's not minimum. You are injuring. If you went outside and then the police punch you in your face, oh, you want to sue? You know what I'm saying? Because why? You don't have the right or the authority to do so. So how do we get to you're in a relationship with somebody and then they have the right and the authority to violate you in that way? And how did we get to the thought process that that's okay because at least they didn't fill in the blank? Let me know your thoughts in the box below. I'm about to run inside. Um, it's not just because of who they are. This thing happens to people. I watched the video. It wasn't Dorothy Dandruff. What was the name of the video? Billie Holiday, the documentary on Billie Holiday and the abuses that she went through, both what she gave and what she received, right? This is not something that's just one-off. It happens in more households than people are comfortable speaking about. And until we bring it to light, no, you don't just speak about it one time and go away. You continue to bring it to light till it's no more acceptable that people can do this and just get away with it. So with that said, I thank everybody for tuning in. Everybody have a blessed day. We'll talk again. All right, one.